Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye naṣṭaḥ Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Yam Pravrajantam Anapetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayana Virahakatara Juhava Putreti Tanmayatayo Taravo Vinedus Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi eṣaḥ ātma-pathaḥ avyaktaḥ naṣṭaḥ kālena bhūyasā tam pravartayituṁ deham imam viddhi mayā bhṛtam eṣaḥ ātma-patho vyakto eṣaḥ ātma-patho vyakto naṣṭaḥ kālena bhūyasā naṣṭaḥ kālena bhūyasā tam pravartayituṁ deham tam pravartayitum deham imam viddhi mayā bhṛtam imam viddhi mayā bhṛtam eṣaḥ this ātma-pathaḥ path of self-realization avyaktaḥ difficult to be known naṣṭaḥ lost kālena bhūyasā in the course of time tam this pravartayituṁ to introduce again deham body imam this viddhi please know mayā by me bhṛtam assume. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vijnana Goswami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. This path of self-realization, which is difficult to understand, has now been lost in the course of time. Please know that I have assumed this body of Kapila to introduce and explain this philosophy to human society again. Purport. It is not true that Sāṅkhya philosophy is a new system of philosophy introduced by Kapila, as material philosophers introduce their new kinds of mental speculative thought to supersede that of another philosopher. On the material platform, everyone, especially the mental speculator, tries to be more prominent than others. The field of activity of the speculators is the mind. There is no limit to the different ways in which one can agitate the mind. The mind can be unlimitedly agitated, and thus one can put forward an unlimited number of theories. Sāṅkhya philosophy is not like that. It is not mental speculation, it is factual, but at the time of Kapila, it was lost. In due course of time, a particular type of knowledge may be lost or may be covered for the time being. That is the nature of this material world. A similar statement was made by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Sakaleneha mahata yogo naṣṭaḥ. In course of time, the yoga system, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, was lost. It was coming in parampara in this cyclic succession, but due to the passage of time, it was lost. The time factor is so pressing that in the course of time, everything within this material world is spoiled or lost. The yoga system of Bhagavad Gita was lost before the meeting of Krishna and Arjuna. Therefore, Krishna again enunciated the same ancient yoga system to Arjuna, who could actually understand Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, Kapila is also said that the system of Sāṅkhya philosophy was not exactly being introduced by him. It was already current, but in course of time, it was mysteriously lost, and therefore he appeared to reintroduce it. That is the purpose of the incarnation of Godhead. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir-bhavati bhārata. Dharma means the real occupation of the living entity. When there is a discrepancy in the eternal occupation of the living entity, the Lord comes and introduces the real occupation of life. Any so-called religious system that is not in line with the devotional service is called adharma samstapana. When people forget their eternal relationship with God and engage in something other than devotional service, their engagement is called irreligion. How one can get out of the miserable condition of material life is stated in Sāṅkhya philosophy, and the Lord himself is explaining this sublime system. Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Eṣaḥ ātma-patho vyakto naṣṭaḥ kālena bhūyasā tam pravartayituṁ deham imam viddhi mayā bhṛtam. This path of self-realization, which is difficult to understand, has now been lost in the course of time. Please know that I have assumed this body of Kapila to introduce and explain this philosophy to human society again. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vijnana Goswami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Janmadhyasya Yatharvayatarataschatashabhijasvaratmeni Brahma Pidaya Adhikaya Muhyandiyat Suraya Tejo Varimridam Yatha Vinimaya Yatratrasargam Risha Dhammasvina Sada Nirasta Kupakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Satyam Param Dhimahi Satyam Param Dhimahi. Antahparishi mama vachinamam prasuttam sanjeevayata kila shaktidara swadhamna anyam shahasta charana shravana vagadim pranam namo bhagavate purushaya tuhyam svasyasta vishvasya kala prasidatam dehantu bhutani shivam mitodiya manascha badram pajato adhokshaja havishyatam namatiratyahayituki. So, Kapila is explaining here the purpose of his coming to this world. And the first point which he makes in this verse, he says, eṣaḥ ātma-pathaḥ avyaktaḥ. He calls this path of Atma, or spiritual path, avyakta. And literally, avyakta means unmanifest. So what does it mean that it's unmanifest? Literally, avyakta means non-visible. Srila Prabhupada explains in his translation and partially in Purport that in this particular case, avyakta means difficult to understand. So the first point, which is very important for us to understand while studying this particular verse, is to realize that this path of self-realization, the path of realizing Atma, is not easily visible. It's not so prominent. There are so many other paths in this world, and they're kind of obvious. You go this way, you get this benefit. You do this particular procedure or whatever it is, you go to this parlor next door to you, and you get beautiful, and you get something tangible. While calling this ātma-pathaḥ avyaktaḥ, Lord Kapila means that it may seem intangible. It's not so obvious. It's not so apparent, so to speak. There are so many different ways which we can take in this material world, and they seem to be very promising, but there are also some other paths which are not so prominent, and this is exactly the path which we have to choose. Against the reasonability, so to speak, against the obvious nature of other paths, and we have to take path which is more sublime, more subtle, and more difficult to understand. The human tendency is there to make it like more visible and more simple, simplify everything. But this is a difficult path, because Atma is something which is very difficult to understand in reality. We can understand the body to a certain extent, we can understand the mind to a certain extent, to a lesser extent, but still we can understand the mechanics of its working. It's more obvious. But what is the path of Atma? What is this intangible, invisible, tiny, little 1/10,000 parts of the tip of the hair thing which is there and which gives energy of everything? It's very difficult. It's very difficult. And, when you do something for the benefit of the body, it's so obvious. Obviously, you have to do it, because you feel better. When you do something for the benefit of the mind, it's also obvious. But when you do something for the benefit of Atma, God knows what it is. And it's not so obvious or so easily to understand. So Sāṅkhya philosophy, that's the specific point which Kapila Dev is making here, is explaining to us how the soul is different from everything else. And even though working for the benefit of the soul may not be so obvious, it's the only proper path. So that's the path of Sāṅkhya. Sāṅkhya means Sāṅkhya, you samyak rupena, you in a very thorough way, in a very diligent way, you sort out everything, and then you understand this is the most important. Something which is the least tangible, something which is very difficult to understand, is the most important. That's what Sāṅkhya is all about. There are so many obvious things and so many obvious ways we can do, or whatever we can conduct our life, but there is this avyaktaḥ, path of self-realization. And then he says, naṣṭaḥ. It was completely destroyed. Naṣṭaḥ means naṣṭaḥ. It was put into oblivion. And this is the way of material life. And obviously, Kapila Dev says this, that this great influence of the time, kālena, bhūyasā, by the influence of time, which is putting everything into oblivion, this path was lost. It's interesting because supposedly this is the spiritual path, and anything spiritual is not under the purview of time. Anything which is really spiritual cannot really be destroyed. But still, in this material world, time rules supreme. And the main duty of the time, the main function of the time, the main and the most obvious function of the time is to destroy everything here, including spiritual things. And we can see, and this is actually the main point which Prabhupada makes in the Purport, that this happens, this is the reality, and the thing which we are doing now is not an exception. ISKCON is not an exception. Unfortunately, even though it's a glorious spiritual movement which is reviving this very subtle path, it is within this material world, and therefore there will be a very strong current of time which will try to destroy this idea. Actually, what is ISKCON? Sometimes people criticize ISKCON as that, ISKCON as this. And yes, of course, there are so many different faults in ISKCON as an organization, but ultimately we have to understand that ISKCON is an idea. It's an idea of people who are conscious of Krishna, which is a very sublime idea, which is very avyaktaḥ, which is not very obvious and not very prominent. So this beautiful idea, we have to really clearly understand that this idea will always be under the attack of time. And we could be the agents of time to destroy this idea. Or vice versa, we could be the agents of the spiritual world to maintain this idea intact. And we have to choose which way we should behave towards this beautiful idea. Because we do have this dual nature, we have this material nature, and material nature basically means that we will try to kind of bring this idea to the level of our own consciousness, bring it down. Instead of trying to elevate oneself to the level of this idea, instead of trying to evolve to really appreciate this idea and get the tangible spiritual experience which this idea can give, the tendency will be there just to bring it down to my own level of experience and kind of say that I already know what Krishna consciousness is. So the first thing which we have to do if we want to maintain this idea intact is to admit very honestly, I do not understand what Krishna consciousness means. I have no idea. Because whatever idea I may have about this glorious past is a material idea which is based on my previous samskaras, on my previous experience. And my previous experience, if it was glorious, I wouldn't, well, what shall I say? I wouldn't go to the toilet every day, not because of the constipation, but because I wouldn't have material body. I would be ontologically different if my experience was completely pure. So this tendency, this temptation which is there within our heart to bring Krishna consciousness to our level of understanding and to explain Krishna consciousness in terms of our own limited experience is very, very dangerous. So the opposite path of it, the opposite approach to Krishna consciousness is to say, I do not know anything. The humility is the starting point. The humility means I'm a fool. We have to clearly admit I'm a fool, I don't understand, even though Prabhupada is so clearly trying to explain to us, but still I'm nobody, and I'm just trying humbly to put myself in a favorable position to this idea, to do everything within my power and within my abilities to somehow rather sincerely practice it as much as I can, and not trying to establish for oneself first and foremost, and for anyone else, that my understanding is the gold standard of understanding. Even though the tendency again will be there to impose my understanding. So not to destroy this idea, not to destroy this sublime and not obvious part means that I don't rely on my own experience. I rely on the experience of those who are higher than me. I completely rely, and then I try to bring myself into the synchrony with the experience of my spiritual master and my Param Guru and Param Guru and so on and so forth. I'm trying to bring my understanding to the level of their understanding. And that's my endeavor to fight against the current of time. Otherwise, the current of time will just gradually, imperceptibly, subtly, moment by moment, will deteriorate the whole idea, or as Prabhupada says, that everything will be the subject of decay. So, and that's my responsibility. And therefore, this Guru Parampara system is existing and is established again and again and again, because the Guru Parampara system is the only system which can fight the invincible force of time. If we want to somehow or other struggle against, or not struggle against, but to resist against this invincible and very powerful time. And Krishna himself says, kālena mahata, this very powerful time, mahata. And by this powerful time, anything can be destroyed. Everything is being destroyed. So if we want to destroy, there is only one thing which we can put against it. On the one side of the scale, we put this Mahankala. And we all know that this Mahakaleshwar Mahadev is there in Ujjain. He is this Mahankala, the most powerful force. And Shiva himself represents this force, this destructive force. And Shiva himself, by the way, is the representative of false ego, is the representative of Ahankar Tattva. So this Ahankar Tattva means I am first. My opinion is the best. I know better than anyone else. So this is the destructive force. And this is what makes us to side with these destructive forces if we put ourselves first. So, but even though it's a huge, powerful thing, and we put it in one side of the scale, if we put devotion on the other side of the scale, the devotion will become much more weightier. Therefore, because devotion is spiritual, and devotion is the only thing which can resist the power of time. But devotion is not abstract. The point of devotion, the most important point of devotion is that the object of devotion is very concrete. If we try to water down the concept of devotion, concept of bhakti, that's why Srila Rupa Goswami explains that bhajdhatu doesn't mean to divide. Because some people, they derive the word bhakti from the root, the verbal root bhanj, which means to divide. But the bhakti means, bhakti is coming from the root bhaj, which means to serve. And service means I have the concrete, very clear object of my service. It's not something abstract, it's not some ideas, it's not something, but I'm the servant. That's very clear identity. In other words, if we want to somehow or other slacken or weaken our false ego, false identity, which is the root cause of our rotation in this, or rotting. Rotation means rotting. It's not a coincidence that they are. So, the root cause of our rotation or rotting in this samsara, in this wheel of samsara, is ahankara. So how we can destroy ahankara? By which means we can destroy ahankara? The only way to destroy ahankara, this identification with the body, is the devotion, means service. Devotion matlab service. Devotion matlab seva. So that's bhakti means seva. Bhakti means seva, and seva means that I don't put myself first. Seva means that I put somebody else first, and I'm second, which is very difficult, which is the deadly blow on my ahankar, on my false ego, false identity, because ahankar means I'm the first, I'm one, and everyone else is around me. Yeah, very nice, thank you. But if we want to destroy, we have to become number two, at least number two. Lord Chaitanya says, dasa, 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 anudas. So, and King Kulashekar says the same thing. We have to become vritti, vritti, vritti. We have to become dasa, dasa, anudasa. So that's how it works. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada basically explains this again and again and again, that if we want to maintain this beautiful, but at the same time very fragile idea, because the spiritual idea, the idea of bhakti, idea of Krishna consciousness, idea of devotion, is foreign to this world. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada says that there is only one traditional religion in this world, that is atheism. Everything else is not traditional. The majority of people in this world are materialists because it's so obvious and it's so easy and it's so natural in one sense. To become a materialist is very natural. To become a devotee is completely unnatural. It's not a very natural thing. So to maintain this fragile idea, basically reading verses like this, which are clearly saying that this sublime spiritual path can be destroyed and will be destroyed and is being destroyed by the attacks of time, we have to really become alarmed and ask oneself this question: what I can do to resist, and what I can do to maintain this sublime spiritual consciousness. And the, again, not so obvious answer to this is, although we have heard it many times, is to serve and to develop devotion to spiritual master and to Param Guru and Param Guru, to the whole Parampara. Actually, Baladev Vidyabhushan has very beautifully explained this in Prameya Ratnavali, if I'm not mistaken. He says that it's a duty of every member of a parampara every day to repeat the names of the gurus who constitute the parampara. It's a duty of every member of a particular sampradaya or particular line of thought, which is propagating particular idea, is also propagating particular idea very loudly. So he says that the duty of every member of a parampara is to remind oneself about this chain of disciplic succession. Again, not in a very abstract way, but in a very concrete way. Here is my guru, and this is the guru of my guru, and this is the guru of my guru, of my guru's guru, and this is the guru of my guru's guru, and so on and so forth. And in this way, we are reconnecting ourselves. Because, again, under the influence of time, our connection will become imperceptibly less and less prominent, and unless we clearly clean up this connection, the current ultimately will not come. Because again, the tendency of the false ego will say, oh, I can do it myself. Oh, I know everything. I know Krishna consciousness. Oh, I can preach Krishna. Oh, I preach Krishna consciousness all over the world. Believe me, I was in America and they all surrendered until they can. But this is ahankar. This is a representation of this destructive force, which is Lord Shiva is mercifully and very humbly accepting as the service. But if we understand that the realization is coming through this chain, that the realization is supposed to come from the spiritual world through this chain of disciplic succession as much as the current is coming from the power station. And unless there is a connection, the current will not come. I may for some time, if I have little batteries, I may flap around as a devotee, trying to explain to everyone how great I am, but if connection is not there, it will not last long. Unfortunately, I've seen it not in one occasion. In a number of occasions, people, they destroy their connection with the eternal parampara, with the eternal chain of disciplic succession, and good people, very intelligent people, very pure people, sattvic people, but because of the pride, because of ahankar, they don't feel the need to surrender. Or they, somehow or other, they think I understand better than my guru. Like there was this famous or infamous episode with one of Sanskrit editors of Srila Prabhupada who became completely envious of him. Srila Prabhupada was so angry at him. And it was rare, Srila Prabhupada said. So yeah, so he came to Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, can I have your blessings to get a bona fide guru? I found one. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, you can have my blessing. Go to hell. This is my blessing to you. This is the blessing which I give to you. So, and the point Srila Prabhupada is teaching in a very harsh way, but because of his compassion. Don't think that you're an exception. We are here only because there are exceptions. Exceptions are there. Kapila Dev is an exception. Definitely. He's coming from the spiritual world to not to reinvent the wheel, but to re-establish whatever was lost. But for that, you need to be on a certain level. You have to come with this mission. If you are not in this category, if you are not in the category of avatar, then you make. And even when Krishna comes as avatar, he accepts Guru. When he comes as Ramachandra, he accepts Guru. And he accepts Guru again and again and again, just to stress this point. It's so important for you because your whole spiritual realization completely depends on how clear this connection is. And it very much depends on your endeavor to clean it up every day. Because again, imperceptibly, this connection will be somewhat clogged by different ideas or different things in this world. And there are so many different stories which can illustrate this point, how important it is. And we can see an example of great devotees who have become the instrumental, the tools in the hands of Krishna to maintain the purity and the beauty of the teachings. They again and again and again manifest the same quality devotion to their own guru, no matter how great they are themselves. Yasyadeve parabhaktir yathadeve tatha guru tasyaite kathitam yartha prakashante mahatmanaha. The spiritual knowledge is revealed only to those great souls, mahatmanaha, who have devotion, completely pure devotion to the Supreme Lord, but the same sort of devotion to their Guru. There is this one beautiful story comes to my mind when Parashara Bhattar, the successor of Ramanujacharya, became the guru of Sampradaya. He had many disciples, but one most prominent disciple of his, Nanjiyar, who became his successor, he was Advaiti. He was Mayavadi. He was Paka Mayavadi. He knew all the Shastras. He was very rich. He himself had many, many disciples, literally thousands of disciples. So, and Ramanuja was still present at that time. So Ramanuja Acharya, he told Parashara Bhattar, you go to this Madhava, his name was Madhava Acharya, to this Advaiti, and you convert him into Sri Vaishnava. So, and Parashara Bhattar, he knew if he comes in his capacity as an Acharya or Guru, you know, this Madhava Acharya, he will not even look at him. He will not even pass through disciples. Disciples will block his way to this great, great Madhava Acharya, philosopher and everything else. So Parashara Bhattar, he puts the garb of a beggar. He puts torn clothes of a beggar and he goes to the house, and the disciples of Madhvacharya, of this Nanjiyar, who became Nanjiyar later, they don't even care, oh, some beggar came. So he comes and he says, can I have some alms from you? And this Madhvacharya says, yes, whatever you need. Yeah, definitely, I'll give you alms. He was also a householder at that time, and very rich householder too. So, and Parashara Bhattar says, yes, my bhikshu which I want to have from you is to have a debate with you. And of course, he agrees, And then Parashara Bhattar completely smashes all his arguments, and he becomes on the spot his disciple. And when he became his disciple, and Parashara Bhattar says, you stay at home and you preach Sri Vaishnavism all over the place, and no problem, be who you are. But then his wives, it was okay with him, but his wives, they didn't like it. He had 2 wives. And the wives didn't like his sudden conversion into something completely foreign. They were enjoying life. So ultimately, he takes sannyas, he renounces, he actually distributes, he gives half of his wealth to his wives, and he had immense wealth. He was very rich. And half of his wealth he brings to Srirangam, to Parashara Bhattar, his guru, and becomes his servant. And he became such an ardent servant, this guru himself. And he himself says, for my sake, to save me, who was in complete illusion in this maya of Mayavad, to save me, you put the garb of a beggar. You came to me by begging. And how can I repay my debt to you? There's no way I can repay my debt to you because of your sacrifice. What you did, you walked all the way to my village or my town, wherever he was. It was quite long distance. So he feels such a gratitude towards Parashara Bhattar, his guru, and he becomes such an ardent disciple. And once Parashara Bhattar was traveling in palanquin, and this Nanjiyar, who was a sannyasi, and Parashara Bhattar is a householder. So he's the first one. He pushes away other servants and he grabs the palanquin. And Parashara Bhattar says, no, you are sannyasi, I have to bow down to you. This is my duty as a householder to bow down to you. You cannot carry myself in the palanquin. And Nanjiyar says, if in order to carry you, to do some service to you, if in order to carry you in the palanquin, I need to renounce my renunciation, I'm ready to do it now. No problem. I can disrobe myself on the spot, put white clothes, and continue carrying you in the palanquin, which is unheard of, in this traditional society. If you accepted sannyas, there's no way, it's not the modern kind of stuff, sannyas. It's serious, wow. And he says, no problem, I don't care. If this is an obstacle to my service, I'm ready to serve to you. And then he becomes the successor. And this is the point which I want to make, is that if we want to maintain the beautiful, spiritual, and not so obvious and very fragile spiritual idea, the only way to do it is to develop devotion towards spiritual master, and by the means of pleasing spiritual master is to obtain spiritual experience. I'm dealing now, anyway, maybe I shouldn't very clearly say this, but it's my personal experience how people, very intelligent people, very sattvic people, as I said, how they completely lose their scruples, they completely lose their mind and become materialists. Nice devotees, particularly in one disciple of mine, become total, complete, 100% materialist, illogically, without any reason. Why? Because of the pride, because of this ahankara which is there, which ultimately can destroy anything, including devotion. If devotion is not stronger, and if we are not guarding it very properly. And as I said, Sri Krishna himself, he shows it again and again and again. He shows again and again and again how the devotion is important, and devotion has to be addressed to a particular person, so much so that he himself accepts Guru whenever he comes. And I want to tell a little story in this regard, again from Sri Sampradaya, beautiful story, how even in the form of the deity, it's okay, of course, when Krishna comes here, it's his lila, and you can say, yes, as a way of his lila, he can accept Guru, no problem. But that's lila. Ultimately, he doesn't need a Guru. But even in the form of a deity, he accepts Guru. To stress this point, to emphasize this point, how important it is, and the story is about one of the 14th Acharya, not after Ramanujacharya, but after Nath Muni, the last great Acharya, very great Acharya in Sri Sampradaya, Manavala Muni. So how Lord Ranganath himself accepted him as a Guru. Lord Ranganath declared that he is my Guru in front of thousands of people who came to hear his explanations of Namalvar's teachings and poetry. So it's a little long story, but I will make it short, although there are many beautiful details there. Basically, it is, actually the story started long before. There is a story in Sampradaya that Nampillai, who was a disciple of Nanjiyar. So Ramanuja, then Parashara Bhattar, then Nanjiyar, this Madhvacharya, and after that Nampillai was the second in line, or the fourth in line. And he was such a devotee that thousands of people would come to hear his classes. He was mesmerizing people. People were completely transformed just by hearing him. So much so that And he was giving his classes in Srirangam temple in the, I believe, western side or eastern side, whatever, of Sanctum Sanctorum, of the altar of Ranganath, and behind the wall. And Ranganath, he wanted to hear his classes. So at one point he stood up from his, Ranganath, as you know, he's reclining on his Ananta Shesh. So the deity stood up and came to the wall just to hear better, because he couldn't hear so clearly what he's saying. And at that moment of time, Pujari comes in, and Pujari becomes angry. He says, "What are you doing? What nonsense are you doing? You're a deity. You're supposed to you go back. You're not supposed to stand up even if you want to hear this beautiful katha." So Ranganath, very obediently, said, "Okay, sorry, I forget about this." But then what he says, then he makes an arrangement. In this, when Nampillai was still there, he couldn't hear his explanations of Tiruvaimoli, the greatest creation of Namalvar. So he makes an arrangement, and ultimately, actually, it is said in Sampradaya that Ramanuja Acharya himself came back as this Malavalama Muni. So this, the preaching of, it's also a very interesting story. Let me explain little details. So one disciple of Nampillai was so impressed and so, so moved by the katha of his teacher that every evening he would come back home and he would record everything by memory, whatever he heard from his guru. And at that time, of course, memory was not destroyed by drinking Limca and Pepsi and all kinds of stuff. So he would hear his guru, and literally to the letter, he would record everything just for himself. Because he never got an order from his guru. In the meantime, his guru, Nampillai, ordered somebody else, some of his disciples, very knowledgeable disciple, "You write the commentary yourself." And he wrote a commentary, beautiful commentary. Nampillai read this commentary. He said, "There, this is the standard, this is the explanation, we don't need anything else." And in the meantime, he himself is explaining this, and this other disciple secretly recording what he's doing. So at one point, he invites his guru to his home to give him some prasadam. And the guru comes to home and he sees all these palm leaves, and he looks in the palm leaves and starts reading the palm leaves, and he realizes that this is his lectures recorded. And he becomes very angry. He says, "What are you doing? Why are you recording this? Why you are scribing my lectures? Did I tell you? And is it because you are somewhat jealous towards your god brother who has written the commentary? Is it the motivation?" And his disciple, he humbly folds his hands and he says, "My Guru Maharaj, you know my motivation better than myself. I will not say anything, but I thought that I'm recording it for myself, not because I wanted to compete with anyone else." And Nampillai says, "Okay, you're clear." And then, so somehow or other, this whole complete huge commentary, the biggest one, by recorded lectures of this Nampillai is there. And Nampillai says, "It's okay, you recorded it, but don't give it to anyone else. I do not want people to read this. It's not time. The time will come when this commentary will be read." So he gives it to another disciple, this whole recorded huge text, 36,000 verses of his recorded lectures. It's probably many gigabytes of information. So he gives this to another disciple and he says, you just secretly explain it to your disciple, and he will explain to your disciple, and when the time will come, then this knowledge will be revealed. So for 150 years, this commentary was kept in secret. Only few people knew that it exists, and Nam Pillai, of course, in the memory of people and in the memory of Sampradaya, he remained as the greatest figure of somebody who knows the deepest purports of Namalvar's poetry. And then 150 years after, Manavala Mama Muni comes and he becomes great Acharya. And at the end, when he's there in Sri Rangam, all of a sudden, Archaka of Ranganath comes and tells him, Ranganath came to me and he told me, now you have to read publicly this commentary which is kept secret. Now the time came. He didn't believe it. He said, no, it's my guru told me not to tell anyone. And again, different pujaris come to him and say, Ranganath wants you to read this commentary, wants to make it public. Ultimately, he agrees and he arranges this huge festival. He was reading this commentary for 10 months in a row every day. 10 months he was reading every day this Idu, this commentary of Nam Pillai on Tiruvaimoli. And every day, thousands, literally thousands of people, the special arrangement was there. The whole temple of Ranganath, all services, all the festivals were stopped for practically 1 year, because the most important thing was happening. And he was reading, this time he was reading this in front of the deity of Ranganath. And the functional deity, Utsav Murti of Ranganath, Nam Perumal, would come and would sit just in front of him. Here is he, sannyasi, sitting on Vyasasana and reading this commentary. And in front of him, the first listener is Ranganath himself. Because he wanted to hear properly, at that time Pujari was an obstacle. He said, no, you're not supposed to do it. so, and then the last day, for 10 months it's going on, the whole complete festival, everyone is completely impressed, and this is called Kalakshepa there. Very interesting. Kalakshepa literally means the entertainment, how you spend your time, how the time is being spent. At that time, there was no YouTube, so you couldn't do any other way of Kalakshepa. If you wanted to entertain, you have to come for katha and to lecture. So this last day, and everyone knows, and he's supposed to read the explanation to the last verse of Tiruvaimoli, the most amazing verse which says that ultimately there is an internal meeting now. After so much separation, Namalvar says, yes, your love is stronger even than my love, and I'm completely surrendered to your love. This the most beautiful verse, the culmination of the whole poem, and he reads it. And when he stops explaining or reading the commentary, all of a sudden, nobody knew where from, a little child comes, 5-year-old child. And this 5-year-old child stands in front of Simhasana, Vyasasana of Manavama Muni, and in a very loud and very beautiful voice, he pronounces the verse in Sanskrit, glorifying the speaker, glorifying Manavala Mamuni, who was reading basically the commentary. And he basically chants the pranam mantra. Still to this day, this pranam mantra is being chanted every day in Sri Vaishnava temples, because Lord Ranganath himself composed this pranam mantra. And he says, I am taking shelter of you. You are my guru now. Very loudly, he pronounces this in front of thousands of people. You are my guru. You are my guru. You are the best of the gurus. And there are, volumes of explanation of this verse, of this pranam mantra. It's a very beautiful verse. I will not get into details here. But the point is that Ranganath himself, as the deity, declares, and then he pays obeisances, he pays dandavat to this Manavala Mamuni, and then stands up, and everyone is amazed and nobody understands what's going on. But everyone is silent. Everyone knows something very important is going on. And then he goes into the direction of the Sanctum Sanctorium and disappears. And nobody knows who he is. And people start talking, who was it? Maybe it was the son of the head priest or whatever. And then Krishna himself, Ranganath himself, comes in the dream of the pujaris, several pujaris, and he says, I was this little boy. That was me. Please explain to everyone that at this last day, after hearing this beautiful katha, to maintain this katha intact, to keep it proper for the posterity, for the other people who come, to stress the point that this is the pure teaching. This is the teaching of Namalvar, which was so carefully transmitted through Guru Parampara. I announced everyone that from now on, this Manavala Mamuni is my guru. I accept him as my guru and I will serve him. So that's what it is. That's a beautiful story, which again stresses the same sort of point, which Srila Prabhupada stresses in the purports of this chapter. So Kapila Muni comes and he gives his instructions to Kardama Muni before Kardama Muni leaves home. And this is one of his instructions, that this avyaktaḥ, ātma-pathaḥ, could be destroyed, and I am coming to reestablish it, not to invent something new. I am coming to restart the parampara, which is eternal parampara. But by the influence of time, this parampara sometimes becomes totally avyakta and sometimes becomes vyakta. And we are fortunate, we are extremely fortunate, because this current of Krishna consciousness is flowing. But we have to be very careful and very conscientious by trying not to destroy this precious ātma-pathaḥ, this precious and subtle path of spiritual realization. Thank you very much. It's late.
How we have to maintain our connection with the Guru. As you told that every day we must have some concrete ways of maintaining that connection with the spiritual master, the parampara. So can you explain some ways by which we can practically do it?
Well, the one practical recommendation which Baladev Vidyabhushan gives is to repeat the names of Guru Parampara. To remind oneself, because we are forgetful souls, to remind oneself, I am the member of such and such family, and there is a dignity and there is a very important message which is transmitted. Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada also explained that we have to understand the mission, the idea which he has, the service mission, basically spreading Krishna consciousness the way he wanted it to spread. Not, well, we can invent new ways. He said that this is good, but there is a fine line between being creative and being speculative. So we have to really maintain the fine line. We have to be creative, but we should not become too much creative by inventing something which is ultimately not in line with what Prabhupada wanted.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. Maharaj, you said that we have to guard our devotion. So, Maharaj, can you please elaborate teaching practical tips how we should guard our devotion?
This is already explained by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that the fence around our creeper of devotion is the society of devotees. Their society, their Sangha, is guarding us and keeping us humble. You know, on our own, we become very proud and our ego will tend to inflate like this bubble. There's this children, they blow this foam into the bubbles are there. They're very beautiful, colorful, all kinds of colors are there. The problem is that they blow up very quickly. So the same with our false ego, become blown up. But then we should come to the society of devotees and they have little pins to prick it. And then you become, you come down to your real size, not this inflated size of false understanding. Okay, thank you very much. So this is one of my last days in Rishikesh. I only have 2 days left. So thank you very much. And on Monday I'm leaving. So thank you for your kindness. Thank you.